All right, good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to another Forex daily analysis session. Of course, with the Afriforex team, hope you're well. Good to see lots of people streaming in, lots of familiar names, guys we see here, and also guys we've met at one point or another. Some of you, but in case you've never met, still cool, but good to see you here. At least we always do see your name here. So John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. For the sake of guys who are new here, we do this each and every morning, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. in the morning. You can use the same link to join us. Of course, that goes out to the guys here in the Zoom meeting. And also, in case you do miss out on anything we do discuss here, you can join us on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, search for Afriforex, you will find our channel there. You can definitely follow what we do end up discussing here. And also remember to like and subscribe when you're there. So we also do have Mitch. He is here. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. Mitch will definitely be getting back to you, but we always do prefer that you do ask your questions in the Q&A section so that at least I can also end up having a chance to respond to them, but towards the very end. But like we always say, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask, even as the webinar does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list. Of course, you can see the watch list there for today in comparison to what we did have yesterday. Feel free to take note of that. A couple of changes have occurred since we were last together. So we'll be looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately have fallen off our watch list today. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You clearly can't see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what maybe would have expected. So price was here. We wanted to see the market break to the upside, come back in, maybe look for buys within there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market came down. This was also a region where we were possibly expecting to see whether we could have gotten buys. The market broke to the downside, broke to the upside again, but unfortunately couldn't hold within this region. And unfortunately, you can see that even when 3 came in, price was actually holding to the downside of that region. So unfortunately, there was no trade for us on that one yesterday. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys as well. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. Of course, you can see the illustrations of what we're expecting. Maybe price breaking above there to the upside. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And also maybe price coming back in, somewhere within this region. You can see that price came in somewhere within this area, but not exactly where we're expecting. And at 3, you can see that the buyers attempted to push to the upside, but they were unsuccessful. So unfortunately, this one, no trade within there. Price has come down. Seems like maybe you could get some buys lifting off this region to the upside. But due to the change in the fundamentals and also change in, the Canadian dollar switching sides, unfortunately, might not be the best of currency pairs to look out for. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. Remember, it had broken to the upside. I pointed out that in case the market comes back into the downside of this region and hopefully we get a hold, we could possibly end up looking to see whether we could get some selling opportunities on this one. So can't see the market came back in, somehow held within here. This was a trade that we did end up looking at yesterday with a couple of traders, but unfortunately did end up working out all the way till the very end. But at least we did end up managing, or rather I did end up managing. I got the entry right there at the top. Market came back in. There was this scenario where we did have the buyers who are giving issues, and I did end up actually closing the trade somewhere within that region before the market pulled back into the upside. Guess it was a good decision because you clearly can't see that the market did actually bounce off that region to the upside. But unfortunately, not really something that we'll be trying to see whether we can trade today. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday, but unfortunately, it's going to be off our watch list. Yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some sells. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also maybe what we expect. Price was somewhere within this region in the morning. You can't see that we're expecting maybe a spike to the upside, maybe the market coming back in some sort of a hold. before the market did end up coming to the downside. But unfortunately, you can't see that the buyers and the sellers were really fighting within this region. And the market did come up slowly before coming down. But when the market pulled back in within here, this is also a trade that we did also end up getting yesterday with the guys that we're trading with. Of course, one of our in-house sessions, and somewhere within this region, market came down and tapped back in within this region. It actually end up managing, and of course you can see stop loss already somewhere within this region. Market pulled back in, got stopped out, but it was a quick move. Of course, it's this trend coming down. Maybe unless if I zoom in within here, that's where you'll see the market just tapped in within here, tapped back in within that area before coming down, and you can see that after that, that was pretty much it. There wasn't any other sell opportunity after that, but of course, today not really something that we'll be focusing on. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly can see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also maybe where we would have expected to get the sell. Unfortunately, the market didn't pull back in within that region. It broke to the downside and actually held within this region. You can see that during the London session, the market did actually start to move to the downside. Definitely also something to do some Euro fundamentals and GBP fundamentals that did end up coming out yesterday after we were done with the session. So those ones did really end up helping the market to move, but unfortunately there wasn't much of a pullback. So you can see that on the euro against the US dollar, as well as on the Great British Pound against the US dollar, there wasn't much of a pullback. It's like the big boys really came in and really continued to push the market to the downside. So this one also, similar situation. We're watching out for sales. The market did come down, which was good. It broke the downside. You can see even what I illustrated. Hopefully, we got a breach to the downside and a pullback within here. Then we could have looked for the sells. But unfortunately, the market did not pull back in within that region. You can see that it just continued to go to the downside. Unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can trade today. But of course, if you did manage to get that trade, then I mean, you still can hang on to it as long as you do manage and see how much more further the market could go. But in terms of looking for new entries, maybe might not be the best. So we'll look at a couple of screenshots we did end up getting. So we'll start off with this one from Dan Pickett. So this is on the NAS 100. Good to see you got the buy down here. I know we were discussing this one yesterday. It's good you actually managed to get the buy down here. Stop loss already above your point of entry when the market started to move to the upside. And I can see that you're targeting all the way high up within there. Quite an aggressive sell, but I'm very sure you possibly timed when the slowdown happened on the smaller time frame. But that was really good. Definitely a region where there were buyers, an aggressive entry, but it does seem like it did pay off. So this is the US 30. So I can see that you also got a buy on this one as well, somewhere within this region and somewhere within this area. Stop losses above your point of entry, which is somewhere within this area. And I can see that you're targeting all the way high up within that region there, which is okay. In terms of where you got the buys, it's cool. Money management is good. And also, I mean, in terms of targets, you can target as far, but at least those are risk-free trades. So shout out to you for that. So you also did end up getting the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. I know we're together when we got this, but this is good. At least you also got the sell there, stop loss already below your point of entry. And I can see that the market was coming down in your favor. Don't know where you were targeting, but I'm sure you did manage things quite well on that one. So shout out to you for that, Dan Pickett, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Mark Ingori. You're here. Shout out to you as well. So this is on the US 30. So you got the sell. Dan got the buy. So I can see you got the sell somewhere within here, which was a really good entry. Of course, possibly a pending order there when the market came back in, tapped within that region, just got taken. And after that, the market started to come to the downside. Stop loss already below your point of entry. And I can see that you take profit all the way down within that region, which is okay. At least it's already a risk-free trade. So shout out to you for that, Mark. And last but not least, we did get a screenshot from Peter. So Peter, if you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So I can see that you got a sell somewhere within this region here. Definitely a good region in terms of looking for the sells. And as much as the buyers had come up aggressive, but at least the sellers were able to shut them down. Best way to look for the sell was definitely there when the market started to move to the downside. I can see that your stop loss came down below break even, which is good. And I can see that you're targeting somewhere within this region here. So this is good. So shout out to you for that as well, Peter. So shout out to all the guys who did end up sending in a screenshot or two. We're always happy to see your progress. If you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. For the guys watching on YouTube, there should be a link in the video description and you can find our contact details there. So that's pretty much it in terms of what happened yesterday. So we can shift gears into matters today. So you can see right there, Wednesday, 2nd October, 2024. This is what our watch list is going to be looking like. Can see number of indices have moved to the sell side. We'll see how things end up transpiring on that front. And you also can see the USD and the Canadian dollar have switched sides. On the fundamental front today, there wasn't much that happened during the Asian session. You can see that there'll still be quite a number of news events that will be coming out during the London session, more specifically the Euros. We'll see how that ends up going. And you can see, of course, during the US session, we do have at least 1 or 2 US news events, some oil. Maybe we could find cards also on the move at that time. So I guess we'll end up seeing some good moves on the chart today as well. So let's see what happens. So we'll start off with the Euros, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly, you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out in terms of good areas to look for the sells and also areas to manage your trades. You can see that I had expected maybe the market was maybe going to pull to the upside within this region, come back in, and maybe we could have gotten some proper sells, maybe on the pullback within that region to come down lower. But you can see that the market was more or less really holding. Within this region here, market bounced to the upside during the US session, came back in within there, and it's more or less holding within these 2 areas. So we've adjusted them, and as much as the sells yesterday were not very clear, but it does seem like the sellers are holding here. Buyers could be somewhere within this region here. There's also this midpoint that we do have. So maybe to some extent, we could possibly end up turning to a range. Maybe the bottom could be here. So you could find that even if you do get sales within here, you might need to manage your trade within this area. And you can see that even yesterday, the market really struggled, to break free of that region to the downside. So these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for today. But it's good to see. I think it was Peter who got the sell on this one. So shout out to you for that as well. So hopefully we'll get something clear today. So let's see what happens. Right now, the market is on the pullback. Either the market breaks to the downside of this region here, and we get some sort of a hold within here, and we could look for the sells to come down. So that could be one option. The other option is, if the market comes back in within this area, then let's wait and see whether we can get, these buyers flowing down within this region. But at least we do know that the sellers are sitting somewhere within this area. So let's see whether we can get that. But remember, in case the market breaks and holds above that SNR, the red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. Clearly, you can't see the 3 regions that I had pointed out. I was expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback back in within this region, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Consider the market broke to the downside and actually held to the downside of this area. You can see that there were quite a number of attempts, of the buyers to actually push the market to the upside, which was unsuccessful. So you can see that it did start to move to the downside during the London session. During the US session, it pulled back in within this area, maybe at around 430. It's a bit of a tricky situation in terms of grabbing the sells within this area here. But it seems like the proper sell did actually end up taking off during the Asian session, especially after these big boys did end up showing up within here. You can see that the buyers still struggled back within this region. And it's like during the Asian session, that's when the trade, hopefully that would have expected to grab yesterday, did end up happening. So for this one, we'll see whether we can get something, hopefully in terms of selling opportunities. So these are the 3 regions we will be watching out for. We've adjusted them. You can see the buyers have come up aggressive within that region, but let's see if they can actually end up giving up within here, because they've come into head-on collision with these sellers who are sitting within this area here. So let's see if we get some sort of a fight going on, and you could find maybe there could be a fight that could happen within that area. But if we get something like that, especially when the market breaks to the downside and actually holds, and you see that the buyers are really attempting to push to the upside, it means that these sellers would have really handled them. And at that point in time, you could find that it's just a matter of waiting for the times and you could find the market coming to the downside. So watch out for that. Of course, also remember the region at the top. This is going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get ourselves. Could find the market back in within there, maybe at around 3, 4. So just make sure that you watch out for that. You could find some good self there, but remembering that that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly, you can't see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning price was here. I was just expecting maybe we would have gotten the market maybe spiking above this region to the upside, but unfortunately that didn't happen. You can't see the turnaround that happened here. The buyers came in and it's like when 10 came around the corner and the London big boys came in, you can see that they really pushed the market to the downside. I was hoping that maybe we would have gotten that last push to the upside, maybe back in somewhere close as possible within here. But that didn't happen, and you can see that the market broke to the downside, held, and continued to run to the downside. So for this one, for today, let's see if we can possibly end up getting something on it. The bias is to try see whether we can get some sells. You can already see that the market has already come back into that semi-aggressive conservative region during the Asian session. So let's see if we can get the market hopefully coming back in somewhere within this region here. If we do, then hopefully we could jump in on some selling opportunities within this area here, especially if the market is back here, maybe sets itself up properly so that during the US session from around 3, 4:30, maybe we could end up getting some really good selling opportunity working off this region right here to the downside. So let's just wait and see what happens, but also remember the region at the top. In case the big boys need that price, at least we will be ready for that. But in terms of looking for the sells, especially when the market is just holding within this region, I really wouldn't advise on that because you might not get, some proper risk to reward trying to squeeze yourself just to get this, unless maybe you look at it on a smaller time frame. But on the 15, your stop losses might actually end up having to be wider. So for these 50 pips here, maybe to make more sense of it, you might need to go down to a smaller time frame. But it would be best, at least if we can clear this region to the downside, then at least that point in time, I think those sells, especially on the pullback, might end up giving you lesser issues. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So this one also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out, and also illustrations of what to expect. So in the morning, price was here. We did expect maybe price could have come back in within that region. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that the market broke to the downside of this region and actually held within this area right here. But it was just during the London session. And you can see that after that, the market continued to rally to the downside. Fortunately, we couldn't get the pullback coming in there. You can see that the sellers still continued on their rampage to push to the downside. Buyers attempted to come up, though this was much, much later on. And right now, it seems like they're being contained within this region here. So for this one, for today, the game plan is still to look for sells, but these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those 3 areas right there. Let's see if we can get a proper pullback. Maybe you could still find price coming back in somewhere within this region here. There's still a possibility it can, especially considering the fact that the buyers pushed to the upside, came back in within this region. The sellers pushed down, but you can see that they started off in a very weak manner, picked up a bit of steam trying to get into this region, but it's like the buyers are retaliating, and you could find that they could easily push the market back in somewhere within this region here. So I would possibly be looking for the sells if I get something like that, especially somewhere within this area here. But of course, in case the market breaks to the downside, then possibly could end up looking for more conservative selling opportunities to the downside of this region. Although I'm not really a big fan of conservative entries, but I guess if that's what the market decides, then I guess we'll just have to end up timing the selling opportunities here. But also watch out for that region at the top. Of course, in case the market pulls back in all the way till there, then at least we'll also be ready for that. So moving on into the next one. This is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, the new entrant on our watch list, we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. You can't see the market rallied down quite aggressively yesterday. There were hardly any pullbacks. Seems like the euro was really getting hammered on this one. So hopefully today we can get a proper pullback coming in. But it's good to see that already the sellers are already in. So all we just need to see is some sort of a good pullback coming in. Hopefully back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If the euro can get some strength, you can see that yesterday there was no strength whatsoever on the euro. In fact, if you look at how the market was coming down, there were hardly any pullbacks. It just shows that, it didn't have any strength to fight at all. So hopefully, maybe today, let's keep our fingers crossed. If we can get the pullback coming in somewhere as close as possible within this region. This is level that's also visible on the bigger time frame. At least if we get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within there or somewhere within this region, at least that point in time, we could possibly try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities. This one is a bit of a long shot, but like we always say, anything is possible. Maybe the big boys, especially when the market is coming down, lots of people are also looking for sells. And lots of people are always late. So there are a lot of sell orders within this region. And maybe a good number of these people need to get stopped out. So you could find the market also spiking to the upside. If it does, then at least we could also try and see whether we could get sells somewhere within here. But remember, this is the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. We do look at what's happening on the bigger scale of things. This is on the 1 hour time frame. You can see that massive push coming down. And right now, if you look at where we are, if you get more context based on the bigger time frame, you can definitely see we are within a buyer's region. And that's the reason why looking for the sells here, in as much as many people are looking for them, they don't know that it could be a setup for disaster. So you could find the market coming back in within there, maybe even tapping within this region. That's why we have that area, because you can see that when the market broke to the downside, it never really pulled back in within that region for a retest. So there's a possibility you could find the market back in within that area. So watch out for that. But also remember, in case the market breaks beneath this red, the conservative area, the yellow SNR at the bottom, if it breaks to the downside, wait for the pullback. Hopefully, you can also end up jumping in on more conservative selling opportunities at that point in time. So can watch out for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euros. So we've mixed and matched up everything on the buy side against the euros. So we'll move on to the GBPs. Do the same. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. Clearly, you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So you can see that around 9:10, price came back in, bounced off this area. We did get some sells within this area at least. Even if your stops were high up there, although it could have been a bit wide, but at least you can see that the market did actually end up coming down during the London session, bounced off this area during the US session. And again, during the US session, there was an attempt to come down, although they couldn't come down lower. But you can see that during the Asian session, that's when it seems that the real big boys, sellers, do seem like that's when they're coming in. Some pullback is happening now. This one is similar to what we saw on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So some correlation is happening. That tells you that there's something to do with the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, some sort of a range is happening here. The market has come down. Seems like it's bounced off this area with a probe. That tells you that the best sells are still hiding somewhere within this area right here. At least if the market can come back in somewhere within there and do get a slowdown of these buyers, the best sells are definitely within there. For the sells within here, unless maybe the market breaks to the downside and actually holds within here and you visually see a hold to the downside, then at that point in time, especially after you get a breach of structure of this range to the downside, then you could possibly look for the sells. Don't make sure rather that you don't get caught up in breakout trades, because you can imagine that when the market broke to the downside of this region, all the traders who didn't wait for the pullback and the hold, for the confirmation, and they jumped in on the sells here. Right now, they're paying for their sins. So just make sure that you're a bit more careful when it comes to breaches. Make sure that you always wait for the confirmation. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells as well. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. An illustration of what to expect, either a breach to the downside or the market coming back in within here. You can see that there was a mess that was going on within this region. The market seemed like it broke to the downside, some attempts to go up. Market seemed like it was holding to the downside, but it still spiked to the upside quite aggressively. came back in all the way to within that region there, and then came back down, held within here, and you can see that it's continued to move to the downside. So for this one, a bit of a mess was going on yesterday within that region. Let's see if we can get something a bit more clear. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. This one is also similar to the euro against the Australian dollar. We've seen the buyers coming up back within, a seller's region. Then if I were to go back to this one, you can see it's exactly the same. So for this one, of course, it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. The sellers are definitely within here, but we need to see more of the story within this region here. I would think that, based on how the buyers have come up, that possibly need to possibly end up slowing down. So if we can get a slowdown, then well and good. I think we could possibly end up getting some good sells of this region right here to come down to within this area. But based on the fact that these guys have really stepped back in within this area quite aggressively, you're not quite sure whether they can come up all the way to within there. So we'll just need to wait and see what ends up happening. Of course, if the market breaks and holds above this region, then it means that most probably the market might need to come back in somewhere within this area right here. So just make sure that you're also well aware of that, because if we do get that, then I guess the sales might actually end up happening off that region at the top there. So those are the two options that we're looking at on this one. So hopefully you've taken note of that. But remembering the red scenario at the top, in case the market breaks that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next one. This is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Remember, yesterday, the yens were showing a lot of weakness, and it did seem like the markets were going to continue to rally up. But the markets did actually end up turning around. And you can see that just like what we saw on the euro against the Japanese yen, you can see that the market did turn around. This was at exactly around 10 during the London market open. The buyers were pushing up. All of a sudden, the sellers showed up. We couldn't get that last push coming up. But you can see that the market broke to the downside, actually held to the downside of this area. And you can see that that was at exactly 430. The times that you keep on pointing out. And off this area, you can see that the sellers, these same sellers who had pushed the market to the downside, actually stepped back into the market. So for this one today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. It's a real shame that we missed out on this trade yesterday, but we had really timed it. I think we're waiting to read more of the story within that region, but the market just tapped within that area and shot to the downside aggressively. So sometimes the markets do end up doing that. So for this one for today, we're going to be watching out for sells. The setup is looking good. Reason being, there's this SNR right here. The market has gone up, held to the upside. Of course, some guys were thinking it's a buy, they hit buys, and lo and behold, you can see how the sellers did come down. Definitely they've been stopped out. Let's see what happens. Hopefully on this pullback that's currently coming in, you could easily find that the market could easily bounce off that region to the downside. The only downside to this particular trade, let's say even if it's a matter of looking for the trade there, the safest stop loss is up here. It's a bit wide to the liking of some of us. We could get something tighter, then it would be better. But ideally, you can end up reading the story of what happens when the market slows down within this area. You could possibly even end up getting your stop loss tight. But of course, that option is for the guys who are a bit more advanced on the charts. So ideally, just to make sure that you get some proper risk to reward coming down. But this is good. What we want to see is the market actually come back in and actually hold within this region here. If we get that, hopefully these sellers, the way they stepped in, if the buyers do give up, we could possibly end up getting the market maybe coming down, to challenge the buyers down within this region here. So let's just wait and see what happens. But the setup looks like it is setting up. So let's wait and see what happens. Remember the red SNR at the top? In case the market breaks above that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair we did have yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see in the morning, and of course the 3 years I had pointed out, in the morning price was here, price had just come back in, I was expecting a spike. The market just tapped, then immediately the sellers showed up. Fortunately, we couldn't get the sell within there, but I had pointed out that in case the market comes back in within this region right here, then possibly we could have looked to see whether we could have gotten some sells on the pullback. And you can see that the market did rally down. This was also another setup that we did get yesterday as we were trading with some of our guys in-house. So can't see this trade off this region coming down. We had to read this story more on the 3-minute time frame. This one did end up giving like a 1:5. I know that some are still hanging on to the trade based on some discussions we were having with the team earlier. But for me, I got it here, came down with it. Of course, when the market came down somewhere within this region, I actually ended up closing the trade. Didn't really want to hold it overnight, but of course, for the guys who are holding it overnight, especially on our team, they're looking at it on a much bigger time frame and they're looking to swing this possibly to go much lower. So for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So we do have that region at the top there. We have this area here that we will be waiting to see whether we can get some sales within there. Can see that the buyers are reacting off that area there, which is good. Hopefully they can push the market somewhere as close as possible within here. If we do end up getting, the market slowing down within this area here, then hopefully we could get some sales there, maybe to challenge this region right here to possibly end up coming in low. But I think maybe some good sales might happen off this area here. The market comes in there, then we'll definitely be looking to see whether I could get another sell on this one. But also remember the region at the top is a possibility price can also come back in there, especially if these buyers do keep on pushing up and the sellers are just not responsive within this region. You could easily find the market back in within that area. So let's see what happens on this one. But of course, remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks above that region and holds above it to the upside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. This is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get sales. You can see that the market did come down aggressively, just like we saw on the euro against the Canadian dollar. So hopefully we can get the market pushing to the upside and hopefully the buyers can react off and we just get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. I think possibly there could be some good sales within there. This is a level that's more visible on the bigger time frame. If you stick to the 15, you might not really see it, but if you go to the 1 hour time frame, you can see that the sellers came down aggressively. So the next point of reference that we do have, just looking at the charts, is actually somewhere within this region here. So you can possibly get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. You could get some very good sales. You can see that the sellers really came down quite aggressive. So if they can actually step in, I think we should be breaking free of this region to the downside. And you could easily find the market, especially down all the way to within this region, if not lower. So watch out for those three areas right there. But of course, like we keep on pointing out, watch out for the times. So you could find that right now during the London session, because you can see that we're fast approaching 10, you could find that the market could be on the pullback phase and maybe at around 3, 4. That's when the market will be, somewhere within this region right here to attempt to come down. So this one, you might need to give it a bit of time. Of course, the best sales are there, but in case the market breaks to the downside of the conservative, then you possibly can also end up trying to see whether you can get some conservative sales. But also watch out for the region on the top. It's a bit of a long shot, but it's always good to always have your options open. So that's pretty much it for the GBPs. So we're going to move on to the USDs now. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, see what it has to offer. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So watch out for this region right here. We also have this area where you can clearly see that the sellers have reacted off from. So if you do get buys here, that means that you will need to manage your trade somewhere within that region there. And of course, if we do break above this region to the upside, then you could find some buying opportunities here to come up within that area. So let's see what happens. Of course, you can see that there was some sort of a spike here, which ideally should tell you that there are buyers who are sitting within this region here. So of course, the best buys definitely will be happening off this area, but we'll have to read more of what happens, especially on the pullback. But ideally, hopefully, let's see, maybe during the London session, you could find the market picking up off this region to the upside. So we'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening on that one. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. You can see some good correlation that's happening amongst the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar. You can see that also this one went to the upside, came back in. Although this one looks like it's already tapped back in within this region, it's already moving to the upside. But I would think that, of course, you can't get the buys now. The only problem is that your stop loss will have to be wider. Best advice, personally, I'd be waiting to see if I could end up getting the market coming back in within this region here, because I'm thinking based on how these sellers have come in, there's a possibility they might attempt to break the downside of this region. And if you read the detail of what's happening within this area, you could even maybe get some buying opportunities, although quite aggressive down within this area. And of course, that one goes out to the snipers, the guys who are highly experienced. So just by looking at what's going on within here, I'm very sure you can decode and possibly get some very good entries within that area. But I'll set an alert on this one right there. I think hopefully we get that last spike and that pullback. I think we could get some proper buys coming in. Watch out for that region there. And of course, that other region at the top right there, definitely a region where you should be looking to manage your trade. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be trying to see whether we can get some sells. So watch out for that region at the top. Watch out for that region in the middle. Could definitely do some money management within that area, and the region at the bottom, which is more or less the ultimate area. So can't see that the buyers are fighting, but ideally we're within a region where we should be expecting the sellers to come in. And if they keep fighting, then you could find that the market could literally spike to the upside. Maybe it might tap in somewhere within that region, but the best sell would be, at least if the market can come back into the downside, then ideally you could look for those selling opportunities. There's a possibility you can also look for sales right now, but personally I wouldn't be too confident about that buy. Of course, the stop loss can end up being higher than this, but it's also a bit too wide, 50. Okay, for my liking, it's a bit too wide. I'd rather get the stop loss as tight as possible. Anything past 15, I always feel like it's too far, it's too wide. So maybe just reading the story of what happens within here. And of course, depending on, especially after the spike does end up happening, because there's a possibility there's some levels within here that the market might need to tap. If it comes back into the downside, at least you can end up bringing in the stop loss quite low, and you could actually end up getting some proper risk to reward on this trade. But of course, if you're just looking at maybe just getting a 1:4, which is still not bad, I mean, that's okay, because even if the market just comes back in within here, we're looking at a 1:2.25, which is also not too bad. So the stop loss will have to be a bit wide. But in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside and actually can't come back in, you might need to actually end up scratching your trade, because it could mean that the market could actually end up taking off to the upside, maybe just spike higher than this. And, it's just a matter of waiting for the market to reset itself. If it spikes up, comes back in, and maybe at 3, it's back within here, or 4:30, then there you go. There you have yourself. So just make sure that you do watch out for it. Remember, money management, when it comes to trading, is very critical. And that's actually what separates the professionals from the amateurs. It's not even the trading plan or the strategy per se, because you'll find that some amateurs have very good plans, but of course, when it comes to money management, knowing when to scratch a trade when things are not going to be working, you find that amateurs end up holding on for too long, yet the facts are telling you that the trade is not going to work out. The professionals are very quick. When things are not working, they cut their losses as soon as possible and actually look for better opportunities or the next best opportunity. So just make sure that you also factor that into your trading, and that edge, build that instinct or that edge when it comes to trading. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. We're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some sells. Can't really see the 3 regions right there that we're going to be watching out for. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within there. Reason being, there are a bunch of buyers who are sitting within this area here. And as you know, we don't buy or we don't sell where buyers are. We want to sell where sellers are. The sellers are definitely somewhere within here, so that at least if the market can actually spike to the upside and come back in within this region, if you get some proper sells, then if you're going to be targeting here and the market comes down and you get some issues here, at least you can be able to scratch at that point in time. But of course, if you're highly experienced on the charts, if the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and you get a hold within here, you could literally actually end up getting a trade coming down off this area right here to the downside till somewhere within here. It might not be that many pips, which means that for you to get a proper risk to reward, you can't see that it's only 20 pips. Then that means that your stop loss will really need to be quite tight. But I think up here, you can get the market coming back in within that region. I think the best sells would definitely be somewhere within this region right here. So let's see what happens on this one. But remembering the red SNR at the top, in case the market breaks above it, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I have pointed out, and also an illustration of what I was expecting. But price turned off this area, came up, couldn't break that region to the upside, came down. There was really nothing to tell us to look for buys within here. Consider the market broke to the downside, just tapped back in within this area, then turned off this area. It was quite a messy issue that was going on, not something quite clear that we could have actually jumped in on any opportunities. And also the cards yesterday were not really performing the best. So for this one, for today, we're going to be going the other way. So we've switched from a buy to a sell. These are the three areas we will be watching out for. Right now, we're in the middle of two areas. I would best suggest that you don't end up looking for any opportunities now. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. There's a possibility it could. There's some sort of a major level, within this area right here, especially when you do go up to the 1 hour time frame. Just to give you more context, you can see that the market is holding within these three areas right here. There was some sort of a range that happened here. The market broke to the downside. But let's see, we can possibly get the market just coming back in somewhere within this area. Then I think some good selling opportunities could possibly end up hiding somewhere within this area. You could get some sales coming in, but you'll still need to watch out for this region because to some extent, technically speaking, you could say that the bars within here are still holding the market. So you definitely need to watch out for that area. But if we clear this region to the downside, I think we could easily find the market on a free fall. And you could find the market maybe even back down all the way till within this area, especially considering we have the non-farm payroll this week. So you could find that maybe the market might break here. Hopefully the fundamentals do still end up telling us that we should be looking for sales. There's a possibility when NFP happens, price might actually end up coming down to within this region. But that's more swing. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But ideally, based on the fact that we're looking at the 15-minute, this is what our job entails today. So just making sure that we get some good entries and managing our trades within these regions right here. In case the market spikes up, then at least we also do have that region at the top there. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched the buys versus the sells. So we're going to move on into the indices and the commodities. You can see that the indices and the commodities have switched sides. Yesterday, I don't know what was happening. The indices were just not performing. But hopefully today, we'll see how things actually end up going. So you can't see silver is the only one on the buy side, but it's just barely hanging on there. We'll end up having a look to see what the situation is on that one. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday, we wanted to see the market take off this area right here. Remember that for as long as we're holding above here, the bus was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. The market did seem like it was holding within here, although these were not really the big buyers. If you do actually end up zooming in, so we're actually waiting to see whether the market was going to come back in and hopefully the bars show up. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that the market really shot to the downside quite aggressively. But that's a good thing about making sure that you're waiting to see exactly what you need to see before you jump in on a trade. Otherwise, such kind of scenarios will definitely catch you off guard. So this one broke to the downside. And of course, you can't see based on what's happening, the market just couldn't come back to the upside of that region, and it's technically already holding to the downside. So for this one, the bias today, and for as long as we're holding below the red SNR, is to actually try to see whether we can get selling opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas. There's a possibility we still could get the market pulling back in within this region, considering the fact that this breach to the downside is something that is quite visible, especially even on the bigger time frame. It could be these sellers who pushed down some sort of a hold that was happening here. They came back in, pushed to the downside. Maybe we should be expecting maybe some sort of a pullback, hopefully coming back in within that area. But if not, and the market breaks to the downside, then I guess we could resume with the sells, especially if we get the confirmation here, and we could easily find the market coming down, maybe to challenge, these regions down here. But you'll still need to read the story on the 15-minute, but ideally that's what the situation is looking like on this one. So remember that for as long as we're holding below the red SNR, the bias is to look for those selling opportunities. So the next one is the US 30 or the Dow Jones. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buys, but those buys were valid for as long as we were holding above this region to the upside. So you can't see even an illustration of what I was expecting. In the morning, price was here. we did want to see the market hopefully break above here for buys, or maybe come back in within here and see some action, from the buyers before we actually jump in on the buying opportunities. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Consider the market broke to the downside, came back in, seemed like it was holding within there, came up, but this was just a probe to the upside, because you clearly can see that when it broke to the upside, it couldn't actually hold. So for this one as well, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So the buyers has shifted. The buys yesterday were not really quite there. I think Dan Bickett is the only one who did actually end up managing to get an aggressive buy, down within these regions here, but at least well managed, and the market did actually end up coming up, a real cowboy on the charts. So for this one for today, we're going to be watching out for sales. Hopefully you can end up taking note of those 3 areas right there. Let's see what happens. Right now, based on the fact that the market is just holding above this region of support, might not really be a good idea in terms of looking for the sells. We can see if you can get the market pushing to the upside. If either we can get the market either bouncing off this area and you get the market back here, maybe at around 430, because, the indices normally do have a higher probability of moving, during that time. So 430, you could find the market back in there. If not, and the market breaks beneath this region to the downside on the pullback, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get those more conservative selling opportunities. So let's see what happens. But in terms of right now, it's best to possibly just end up waiting to see what happens. So for silver, remember I pointed out that silver is just barely hanging on the buy side, because in the morning when we were doing the analysis with the team, it was somewhere within here, but we had an idea that maybe it might actually end up breaking to the downside during the Frankfurt coming into the London, but it's just broken below to the downside. We wait for a bit more confirmation. But generally, these are the 3 areas we're watching out for yesterday. And you can see that in the morning, price was hanging on somewhere within this region right here. And you can see that there was a real fight that was going on during the London session. During the US session, market was within a buyer's region, took off to the upside. If you got the buy there, you did need to manage within that area. You can see that the market did actually end up slowing down within this region here. So for this one, we're in a catch-22 situation, considering the fact that we're just breaking beneath this region to the downside. So let's wait and see if we can get confirmation, of the market actually holding to the downside. If the market comes back in within there, attempts to break to the upside and cannot, the market literally holds to the downside. I think at that point in time, we're officially going to be in sellers. But right now, because you don't know what could happen, these buyers have pushed the market back to the upside of this area. So in case they do, and the market actually goes to the upside of this region and actually holds, to the upside of this area, you could technically find that the buyers could come in and maybe they could come up and challenge the sellers who are sitting somewhere within here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Right now, we're in a catch-22 situation. The reason why we're still watching out for buys is because we've not yet confirmed that the market has actually broken to the downside. Always waiting for that hold, like we keep on pointing out. So that one, be a bit patient. Let's see what happens. Then hopefully the big boys will decide which way they want to take that, and we'll end up following after that. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, yesterday the bus was to try and see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly, you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was here. I did point out that maybe if we did get the buyers slowing down within here, and we did get the sellers really coming in, we could have looked for the sells. Unfortunately, that did not happen within that area. You can see that the market really rallied up quite aggressively, picked up a bit of steam during the US session, attempting to break to the upside, came back in, held within this region. Right here, you can see that the market has attempted to come down low. So for this one, we've adjusted the levels in as much as we're still watching out for sells. And I'll show you why in a bit when we go up to the 1 hour time frame. But just make sure that you do take note of those 3 areas first. So right now, we're within some sort of a buyer's region. Consider the buyers yesterday at around 430 pushed the market to the upside. So we really need to wait and see what happens within this area, especially if the market can actually attempt to break to the upside. If we get that hold, then I think you could look for some sells within here. But also if you get the market breaking to the upside holding, then you could find that the market might attempt to come up a bit higher. Maybe it might come back in within this region here, somewhere within here. I mean, there are quite a number of scenarios within this area where the big boys might actually end up needing those prices. But of course, the ultimate area that we do know where the sells are really going to be ending is within this area. If we break above this region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no more selling opportunities, especially if we get the hold to the upside. Then at least at that point in time, we could start to look for those buying opportunities. So gold has been a bit of a tricky situation, trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, it's been going up for an extended period of time. We are challenging highs. We're trying to map the SNRs, within this region as the market is moving day by day. So that's the reason why we keep adjusting them. So don't think that we're confused in terms of we're not sure of what to do. It's just that we're mapping them as we're continuing to move along. So you can't see the adjustments. We're making them every day based on what we end up seeing. But generally, it looks like the sellers could technically be holding within this region here. The market has been going up. Let's see if this is going to be some sort of a pullback to incite sellers to actually come in before we actually end up resuming with the buys to the upside. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But of course, if the market breaks above here, I think you could find that the markets could technically continue moving to the upside. And at least at that point in time, we could actually end up starting to jump in on those buying opportunities. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So hopefully you've taken note of that, and everything we've discussed. For the guys who came in late, feel free to take note of the screenshot. So I'm seeing Alan Ronald there in the Q&A section. You're saying, hi, John, thanks a lot. Always good to see you, Alan, here. Hope you're doing well on the charts and in everything else. I see Caroline Moher there saying, hello, I'm confused as to why the dollar shifted. Please assist. It's because we looked at the correlation with the team. And also, if you end up looking at the fundamentals that came out yesterday for the USDs, you can actually end up seeing that the numbers were negative. In fact, even when you end up looking at the most recent, this one right here at exactly 9 yesterday, you can see that the previous number was 3.1, we have 2.5. So even just based on the last news event, that's why we have that. But also when you end up looking at these news events that were here, all of them, most of them are negative. If you look at, apart from this one was positive, but look at this one, negative. This one was more or less the same, but it's a number less than 50. And also considering what the analysts were expecting, it's actually a lesser number. So for that reason, weakness, and also this one, 54 to 48.3 weakness. So that's the reason why we have that. Only this one and this one are actually positive, but even the one that came out last, this one was actually negative. So that's why we're expecting maybe we could get some weakness coming in on the USDs. So I hope that's clear for you, Caroline Moher, but good to see you here as well. So I see Charles Mugai there. You're asking me to re-show Euro and ZD. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities, just like we were yesterday, but we've adjusted the levels and you can't see the plan of what to expect. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. Of course, just looking at that, you can see that the red SNR is at the top. So that's the last area we'll be trying to see whether we can get ourselves. You're asking for Euro AUD. So for this one, we're also going to be trying to see whether we can get some sales. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. The buyers have come in. Let's see some sort of a slowdown and a hold within here. Then maybe we could get some sales on this one to come down, but also watch out for the region at the top. So I hope that makes sense for you. And I can see that you're also asking about the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. So these are the 3 regions. Hopefully you can end up taking note of them. And hopefully, like I pointed out, we could find the market coming back in within here, then we could find the buys lifting off that area to the upside. So we'll just have to wait and see whether that will end up happening. In fact, let me even just set an alert here because I'll definitely be timing to see whether I can get the buys within that region. So I hope, Charles, you've taken note of all that. I see Joe Moshiri there. Good to see you asking. Kindly share link. Friend want to register for the Afriforex morning session. Yeah, I think Mitch can put a link there. But also, I think you can find it, especially on all our links. You can definitely find that there. And of course, if you're getting much value, you also can end up sharing the YouTube. What we end up also sharing on YouTube so that at least I can also follow on what's going on. Remember to like and subscribe and also share. So you see Daniel Simiyu there, Dan Bicket is saying thank you Afriforex team, karibu sana, and Ivy Wanyama there is saying hello, thank you so much, karibu sana Ivy, good to see you here as well. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. Not really seeing anything else there, but like I keep on pointing out, if you've missed out on anything, you can't find this information on YouTube as well. So you can't go rewatch the broadcast. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day on the charts and in everything else that you end up doing. Hope you cut some good pips. If you get some good trades, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. Us guys will definitely be more than happy to give you a shout out. So I see Peter Washira there. You're asking, do we still have live trading in-house? Not public sessions, but we do have them in-house. So yeah, that's what's happening for now. But maybe things might change in the future. We'll see. We'll see how things go. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So with that, happy trading and bye for now. May the pips be with you. God bless.